to the Elephant Room, where we tackle the unspoken, uncomfortable, and unseen truth. Join Lynda Carmouche, your host, a licensed therapist, mental wellness strategist, and speaker, going beyond titles, addressing the emotional scars, hidden trauma, fears, and the silent battles many professionals face but rarely discuss. Come on in. The Elephant Room, where vulnerability meets strength. Hit subscribe and connect with hope, healing, and the courage to address the elephant in the room. Remember, the content here is for informational purposes only. Seek help from a qualified professional for mental health concerns, and discretion is advised for sensitive topics.
Welcome to the Elephant Room. I am Lynda Carmouche, your host. How are y'all doing? What's going on? I want you to jump in the chat box tonight and talk to me. Say hello. Let me know that you're there. Y'all, I am fired up tonight for this conversation because we are talking about grief, the uninvited guest. And you know, whenever we have an uninvited guest that shows up to our house, that's not something that we welcome. Okay. Tonight we have Danielle Anderson. Matter of fact, she goes by Danielle Guillory Anderson here with us tonight. You know what? When I began to read Danielle's bio, it made me feel like this is a perfect example of being able to shift. Sometimes we get into careers, we get into these roles in life, and we feel like we have to live there because we started there. Y'all, Danielle is an electrical engineer. And when she felt she needed to shift, she took a shift. She is now a trauma-informed speaker. She is an embodiment coach. We're going to find out what that means because let me tell you, it's some good stuff. And she's a doula. She helps women. She helps women that are tired and wants to live a different kind of life. Sometimes we get stuck and we don't even know that there's another way that we can do this thing called life, y'all. She's going to talk about trauma. We're going to talk about stress, and we're going to talk about grief. We're not just going to talk about it, but tonight you're going to walk away with some practical tools on what you can do in your life to make a shift. Y'all go ahead in the chat box, talk to me, let me know that you're there, and go ahead and help me welcome Danielle to the Elephant Room. Hey Danielle, how you doing?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Good. I'm excited that you're here because we got a lot of stuff we need to talk about. We've been talking about grief, and we know that grief is a real thing. In most families, we don't talk about it to the point that we unpack grief. And so I see people coming in. Last week, we talked about grief in men. The week before, we talked about grief in children. I couldn't leave the ladies out because let me tell you, they were like, Lynda, what's up? So I wanted to connect with you and have a conversation. Can you tell us when it comes to grief, why is that even a conversation that you're having with people?
Oh, grief is a whole body experience. And in the work that I do, helping women to stop just going through the motions and living a life kind of unconsciously, just a life of existing, moving into a life of living authentically, living in freedom, living with presence, living consciously. We have to be conscious about what we are experiencing. We have to tell the truth about what's going on in our present life and acknowledge things from the past because most likely our past is showing up in some way in our present. And oftentimes, grief is a part of the story. And so, if we want to fully live authentically and with joy, we want to live, I use the word integrated, in alignment, we have to acknowledge parts of our story that might be sad, and oftentimes grief is a part of that.
Okay, Danielle, let me just go on and tell you, I'm going to have to pull my fan out early. This means it's getting hot in here, okay? This is what this means. Okay, so in the Elephant Room, we're all about healing the person behind the title. Because let me tell
Mhm.
you, we'll take a title and put it in front of you, and you will never get to see me, the real me.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you said something that has already triggered me. You said we have to tell the truth.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Why are you saying we have to tell the truth about our right now and
Yeah.
about what happened in the past?
Yeah, I think telling the truth is us being aware of what's happening in the present. That takes a lot of courage. It takes vulnerability. But I can't change anything. I can't heal anything. I can't grow anything unless I first see that it's there and acknowledge that it's there and can have the courage to face it. So that's why I say it's so important to tell the truth. I need
Mhm.
to, if I'm feeling something, if I'm feeling anger in my body, let me tell the truth about that rather than putting on the fake smile and being like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And I'm burning inside.
Wow.
The truth is so important to this healing and growth journey.
So we don't even need to get to talk about getting help outside of ourselves yet, because if
Not
we're
yet.
not honest with ourselves and what I'm feeling, what I hear you saying is we can't even start our journey.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. If I can't be honest with myself about what I'm dealing with and take that time to actually make space to go to do a self check in, to go inward. I love the idea of introspection. If I can't tell the truth about that, or if I can't see it, I don't know what I'm taking to my therapist. I don't know what I'm bringing into another space where I'm asking someone for help because I don't know where I'm starting. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to see everything. Of course, I acknowledge we have blind spots, but it is good for me to be honest about, well, I don't know, I feel angry today. Okay, so I'll take that into a conversation with someone else. I can tell the truth about being angry, and then we can dive deeper from there.
So you work with women
Hmm.
primarily right
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
Why do you think women don't own their truth about how they're feeling, whether it's about grief or
Hmm.
anything else? What do you think blocks us from being honest about how we're feeling?
Ooh, that's such a fantastic question. So many thoughts I have to that. The first is I don't know if we've been given permission to even slow down enough to see how we're doing because we have been
Wait a minute. Wait
trained.
a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me get my fan. Permission? Because we're talking about grown women.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're saying that we have not been given permission to slow down
Hmm. Yeah,
and even
yeah.
okay. I'm tracking
So,
with you.
right, we live in a culture, grind culture is oftentimes the rule of the day. Go, go, go. Hustle, 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 grind, grind, grind. And so it keeps us moving, it keeps us going. And then you compound that or combine that with maybe our history of watching other women in our life keep going, have to push through. They couldn't stop, they couldn't slow down. And then you think even more, take it back beyond further back in our to our ancestors who couldn't stop, who couldn't slow down, who had to keep going because they had to survive. What was stopping and checking on yourself when you were literally trying to run for your life? There's so many layers to this. So, yeah, I think we have to know now, and we honor our mothers and our grandmothers and our
Yeah.
aunts and the women in our life, and we honor those that have come before us because they did what they had to do to survive, and we honor that, and we honor ourselves too. We often have done the things we needed to do to survive, and now so much of our work is realizing sometimes those same survival mechanisms, we don't have to keep going in those same ways. We actually do have permission to slow down and stop, but sometimes that feels scary and it feels unsafe. So we'd rather just stay in the familiar. We talked a little bit about the comfort zone earlier.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more comfortable to stay moving, to not stop, but it takes courage to receive permission, give it to ourselves, to actually slow down and go, what am I dealing with? Because, yeah, we don't always have that permission because we're so focused on keeping it moving. And we've been kind of culturally trained to always be focused on the interests of others that we often haven't developed that muscle to turn that gaze back inward on ourselves and go, well, how am I doing? I've been caring for everybody else but me.
Ooh. One of the listeners says, recognize that there is an issue. And if you stop, you have to feel it. And
There it is.
so
Yes.
it makes me wonder, how often are we continuing to move in the grind and avoid giving ourselves permission to slow down because it's a distraction. And as long as I'm distracted, I don't actually have to feel what I feel.
Mhm. Yes, that happens all the time. We find various ways to avoid. We find various coping mechanisms to keep us from hurting. I mean, it does hurt to stop and have to feel pain and to acknowledge
Mhm.
there's sadness there. And part of my story actually includes that was a big challenge. It actually put me on this trajectory of whole health and wellness and stress and trauma. But so that's why I use the word vulnerability and courage. It takes a lot of courage for us to be willing to get out of the comfort zone and be willing to face that which is uncomfortable, to face those things that hurt or that might be hard. Because I will say there is growth and there is more freedom on the other side. Sometimes it just takes going through a tunnel of discomfort to get there. I think that's how growth happens, though. Growth is on
Ooh,
the other side of discomfort.
we don't want to be uncomfortable,
No,
Danielle.
no, we live in a culture of comfort. I'd rather just, maybe veg out on the couch with Netflix or a bowl of homemade vanilla ice cream, whatever it is,
Yes.
than face the things. Yes, that's so true. And I understand. I've done the same thing as well. And if I slow down and I'm honest with myself to say, but is this the type of life I want to continue living? Or will I do the hard thing, face what's hard, face what's uncomfortable, and what can I believe and hold on to the hope that there is something better on the other side?
Mm,
And that takes courage. It just takes a lot of courage. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's fast. It does take discomfort. And I still believe that there's something good on the other side. If I can offer a little bit from my own story of
definitely.
grief.
Definitely.
So my story includes, I like to slow it down. My story does include loss, and it includes the loss of a child. And that is a pain that I wish upon no one. It is the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life. And I like to say that I'm 11 years into this ongoing journey, or this journey of ongoing grief and restoration. So I always say, like, I'm not okay. I'm still sad. I still miss my child every day. And I can acknowledge that there has been rest elements of restoration. I don't believe that I'll be fully restored until that day where God cracks the sky and calls me home, um, or where I get to be called home, or God cracks the sky and makes like a new heaven and new earth here. So I've just resolved to go on this journey of ongoing grief and restoration. Now, in my story, early on in the first month of my grief journey, I found out that I was pregnant. I had a lot of mixed emotions about that. I had, there's a lot of whatever, there's a lot of stuff going on. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I asked my midwife, how do you do this thing called being pregnant while grieving? I don't understand.
Wow.
And she said, your grief is going to affect this baby. Now, I didn't understand that at the time, what that meant. And she said, so whatever you do, you're going to need to let yourself feel. So if you're angry, you're going to need to figure out a way to get it out in a healthy way. If you need to cry, cry. Because otherwise, if you stuff it in, if you suppress it, it's going to be counterproductive to you growing a healthy baby. Now, I didn't know. Now, I now know what that means and how grief affects the body and trauma and nervous system stress, all these things now. At the time, 11 years ago, I didn't understand that, but I was willing to do what she said because I wanted to, as best I could, try to minimize the effect that my grief would have on this child that was growing in my body. And so that took a lot of courage to go, well, guess I got to start feeling then. And it was so excruciating because no one wants to feel that. Before I found out I was pregnant, I was trying to numb. And I used my ice cream example because that was my drug of choice, vanilla ice cream. Sugar was going to be was for a few weeks was my coping mechanism. I just did not want to feel. I wanted to numb out. And so ice cream was my choice. And then after finding out I was pregnant, I had a different choice to make. Now, I could have chosen to stay eating my ice cream. And I didn't, because I wanted to give something better for the child in my that was growing in my body. And I believe if we can get to that place, if we can go, there is something better on the other side. I'm giving a better version of myself to my community, to my family, to my friends, to myself. Okay, then let me get the courage and let me move into this discomfort, because something better is on the other side.
So I want to go back because this is a lot to unpack, and I want to make sure that listeners are not missing so many nuggets that you're given. When we lose someone we love,
Mhm.
and I'm going to talk about women,
Mhm.
we often take it hard,
Mhm.
especially if that person was very close to us. And
Mhm.
you said you lost a son.
Mhm.
We can't get any closer, Danielle.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, you lost your child. Can
Mhm.
I ask how old your son was?
He was 1 years old.
He was a year old.
Mhm.
You lost your baby.
I lost my baby. His name is Chase.
You lost Chase at 1 years old. And months into this grief of trying to figure what life is going to be like without your son, you
Mhm.
find out you're pregnant.
Mhm.
Now you're trying to manage, should I be happy
Right.
because I'm sad? Should I
Right. Yes.
How can I show joy when I'm in the midst of pain? We
Mhm.
try to box life experiences in a way that they make sense, that
Mhm.
they're beautiful, that they
Mhm.
all just show up and it works itself out. I'm going to even say, as faith people and
Mhm.
believers, we say pray and it's going to work out. But
Yep.
you have just shared a real life journey that says, I'm having the worst of days while I'm having the best of days.
Mhm.
But then you said, when I found out that I could impact negatively the child I was carrying,
Mhm.
I made a choice.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Which tells me, even in the midst of the worst pain you were experiencing in your life, you
Mhm.
still held the power to make a choice.
Yeah. Yeah, and let me tell you where I got that power from. I am faith based, and there was a scripture that I was reading at the time. It was Deuteronomy 30:19, and I don't even know why I was in X or yeah Deuteronomy, but it says God's telling the Israelites, "I have set before you this day life and death, the blessing and the curse. Therefore, choose life that you may live,
Yeah.
you and your descendants."
Ooh.
Now, I know so much more now about the weight of that. As a doula, I now understand. We know there's so much research that supports in utero, mom stress is baby stress. I now know, because of a thing called epigenetics, that we can carry in our body trauma from our ancestors. Some people will say up to 3 generations, some will say up to 14. So, this choice really is impacting generations. And in that season, when I got that scripture and it was choose life or death, the blessing and the curse, what came to my mind, even though I was very much fresh in a season of being face to face with true death, it wasn't loss of life that came to my mind when I saw the scripture. It was just that which isn't life. In my mind, I pictured a path and I saw kind of one path leading to like fullness of life, abundance, and joy. And then there was another path that was just not that. It wasn't lack of breathing. So it wasn't not living. It was just there's a path without joy, there's a path without peace. And so for me, I was like, I get to choose. And I don't always choose the path of life, but I'm like, as much as I can, God, please, by your spirit, give me the power to choose life. And so that my motto at that in that season, I still live by it today. I chose to live one moment at a time.
Oh, this.
And I resolved to just keep doing that. Because I remember meeting with another mom who had lost her child. And I had two moms that were on this loss of a child path. They were ahead of me. One mom had lost her child 3 years prior to me. One mom had lost her child 10 years prior to me. And I remember looking at them and going, there is no way I will make it 3 years without Chase. Uh, Impossible. Not even an option. And somewhere, by God's grace, I just resolved, listen, I won't even make it to next week. I might not even make it to tomorrow. All I can do is today. Let me choose, make a choice in each moment. Let me exhaust these new mercies that are coming for me every morning. And then let me go to bed and I hope that they're going to be there tomorrow. And it really was this like one day at a time. I could not
Mm.
think too far ahead. And I think in grief, sometimes we do that. Sometimes we think, you know, oh, when I get to 6 months, it'll be fine. I don't know. I could not see 6 months. I could only
This,
see today.
oh, Danielle, this is too much. This is so good. The moment to moment, the
Yeah, that's
moment
it.
to moment. We get so caught up in how is this going to happen for me if, but you're saying that I had to be intentional
Hmm.
about being present in the moment.
I had to be present in the moment. And that was a new skill. Like I was not this person that was practicing presence before this season. This was all new. And so it was me learning how to go, okay, I'm sad. I want to cry. Guess I'm going to cry now. It was me going,
Wow.
recognizing, okay, I am a totally different person than I was before March 23rd, 2013. The capacity that I had then is not the capacity that I have now. So I'm going to lay down. I'm going to go take a nap. It was little things that I just had to be honest about. And that it was scary and it was very hard. And I'm grateful for the community of people that surrounded me in that. But it was something that I was committed to do for the sake of the child growing in my womb and for my older son who had lost a little brother. So there was a part of me that felt overwhelmed. Like, I don't know how to take care of me. I can't take care of me. How can I take care of my 3-year-old son who's grieving a brother? And now, God, you're asking me to care for a child growing in my womb. This is too much.
Okay, okay,
It's just too
okay,
much.
okay. So now we got to go there. We got to go there, Danielle. Not only have I lost my Chase,
Mm-hmm.
my 3-year-old son has
Mm-hmm.
lost his brother.
Mm-hmm.
We oftentimes, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago, feel that, oh, children are children and they don't know. Children know.
They know. Yeah. Yeah.
Children know. And now, as you're trying to navigate this new life that you have, doing things you've never done, like take a nap when you feel like your body is saying take a nap, cry when you feel like you need to cry, you
Mm-hmm.
also have to be concerned about the well being
Mm-hmm.
of your son who's 3 and can't
Mm-hmm.
take care of himself and
That's
probably
right.
doesn't have language to
That's right.
express what it is he's feeling in his mind, body, and emotions.
That's right. Yeah.
You said you weren't this person before. What were you like
No.
before if you were not present in the moment?
I was just going through the motions and living the life I thought I was supposed to be living, kind of conforming to standards that had been set for me, really within like kind of a church context, kind of a white evangelical church context. This is what a woman looks like. This is what a wife looks like. And so much of that was about other people. You need to be there for your husband. You need to be there for your child. So I had not cultivated at all any kinds of muscles to care for to even look at myself, let alone care for myself. Now, I mean, I would go to the gym, I
Mhm.
would eat decently. But I feel like, let me say this. Maybe I had built a little bit of these muscles in pregnancy with my oldest son and with Chase. I think there was some level of me that kind
Mhm.
of understood a little bit. You should take care of yourself in pregnancy because it impacts your baby. But it's like as soon as the baby was born, all that went out the window, and all my effort was solely on them. I didn't care what I was feeling. So I had, I guess, a little bit of practice with that. But no, once I got into this grief, and having to be present and really turn my eyes towards myself and be honest about what I was feeling and feel what I was feeling, that was hard. It was scary. It was so, so painful. And it was healing.
Wow. Oh, this is so good. You said it was painful, but
Mhm.
at the same time, it ushered in your healing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many times we don't take care of us, but what I
Right.
also heard you say is it was in you taking care of you that you were able to take care of the ones you love.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Absolutely.
This is
The painful conversation. Yeah, it was very painful. It did not feel good. It was, you're in a season of excruciating pain of just grieving a child. Like that is painful, and having to sit in that is is painful. And to me, it's way more than discomfort. That is pain. And yet, that was pain that I chose. I use the verbiage. I learned to lean into the waves of sorrow. So you mentioned that I'm a doula. I also am someone who had unmedicated labors and births with all. I have four boys, and so all four births were unmedicated. And so I had to learn, in labor, and now I get to help support clients in this. You learn to kind of ride the waves of surges, of contractions. You learn how to feel them coming, and you breathe and you lean in because you know that this discomfort is leading to something beautiful and good. And I've
okay.
seen
Hold on,
moms.
hold
Okay.
on, hold on, hold on. This is some good stuff. I need you to educate us on what a doula is
Sure. Yes.
and the whole purpose of a doula. Because there may
Yeah.
be listeners who don't really know what that is, and I want to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind.
Yes, so good. So a doula is a person who provides whole support to a birthing mom, mental support, emotional support, physical support. Doulas are most common seen as that ongoing, constant support during labor and birth, where they're by your side, making sure you're hydrated, or helping dad help you, providing massages and things like that. And beyond the birthing suite, you are just there to support mom, cheer mom on, help her mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So you're just that ongoing support. And it's an honor to be that for moms. I like to call myself, even outside of the birthing space, a dynamic doula, because the same way that in a birthing capacity, I might encourage a mom to come back to her body, come back to her breath, notice what's going on in her mind. I do that for people outside the birthing suite to help them move their bodies out of survival mode and into thriving. So I get to be a life doula.
Yes, I was just about to say you're a doula in that birthing suite. Some of us, in the midst of what we are dealing with in our lives day
That's
to
right.
day, we need somebody to stand as a doula
That's
and
right. Because we're
say,
birthing something.
every one of us, we are birthing something. And sometimes we need that doula to say, hang in there,
That's right.
ride that
That's right.
wave.
Ride
It
that
doesn't
wave.
feel good, but I'm here with you.
Yep.
Don't miss the point that she said she also helps the dad and
Yep.
how he can support that mom.
Yep.
Sometimes we need somebody standing with our loved ones
That's
to
right.
help them understand how to support us, which is
That's right.
so in line with what one of the listeners said. She said, breathe to breathe,
Hmm.
breathing to breathe. And sometimes we go through that. Sometimes we stuff that grief, that pain. And
Yeah.
Danielle's going to talk a little bit about what it looks like in our body and how it impacts us. But I see a comment that I want to make sure that I jump into. It says, I had to learn how to exist as a human when I lost both my parents. I always felt that I would die if something happened to them and carry on from my adult siblings because it can get hard, as Danielle
Absolutely.
said. And we don't always know what to do or how we're going to manage. But I believe if we scale back and we give ourselves permission to feel the pain and we give ourselves permission to be human and get rid of this, I got to be strong for everybody else. I don't have to be strong
That's
for
right.
anybody else, not even myself. I
That's
am
right.
not strong. I am human, and
I'm human.
humans feel.
That's right.
And so it is
Absolutely.
not a weakness for you to feel. It is not a weakness. The pain you're
No,
experiencing now, I promise you, it is not going to last forever. But sometimes it lasts longer because we refuse to ride that wave.
that's right. Oh my gosh, you said so many things I want to respond to in that. Yes. If humans, we are humans, and part of the human experience is feeling. And that means I'm going to feel angry sometimes, I'm going to feel scared sometimes, I'm going to feel adventurous sometimes, I'm going to feel happy sometimes. That is part of the wave of the or the scope of the human experience. And so if we can accept that, that includes welcoming grief. And I love to, there's a quote. So I have all boys. We're a big superhero family. And there's a superhero TV show called WandaVision. And one of the characters, Vision, he's one of the Avengers. And he says in that show, but what is grief if not love persevering? And that's what I want people to take in the grief conversation is do not see your grief as a weakness. Yes, the grief might have been an uninvited guest. And now can you welcome that guest as a display of your love? Your grief is a display that you love that person that you miss. And they might not even have passed. It might be a lost relationship. And
Yes.
you're grieving that. And your grief is a display of the love that you have for that person. And I think if we can embrace that, that definition, that framing of grief actually does, I think, help us ride the wave. Because so I was gonna say I've seen moms in labor kind of when a contraction's coming, I've seen them kind of go up and there's a level like you're trying to run away from the contraction. And you can't do that because you can't outrun a contraction. It's coming. So instead you have to breathe and you got to get in there. You got to lean in. Oftentimes you're leaning forward. There's a whole lot of things. The same way with grief. I feel in my body, I want to run away from this. Instead, can I breathe and lean in?
Mm,
Can I let this wave of emotion come? And that might include tears. It might surprise you what it brings. It might bring laughter. Who knows? Can you welcome it? So when I can reframe grief, because if it's framed as a weakness or if it's framed as an intruder, I'm not gonna want it to come in. If I can frame it as a show of love, let me welcome it. Let me welcome that to flow and move through. And just like you said, there will be some intensity,
yes.
and the intensity doesn't last forever. And that's something that I've worked with a lot of clients on. There's a thought that if I lean in, it's gonna be intense forever, and I'm just gonna get stuck there. I won't come out. And I'm just here to say that's not how God works, and that's not how your body works either. The way the body works, I ask this question: do you have 90 seconds? If you have 90 seconds, science has shown if you can give yourself 90 seconds for the wave of grief or the wave of whatever emotion to kind of come, to rise up, to peak, and then it'll come down, you it just moves through you. You just rode the wave. It gets longer and we can amplify the discomfort when we start to add judgment
Mm,
and add commentary. But literally, this is my doula coming in. If you can get out of your head and drop into your body and just here it comes. I'm gonna let the heat build up. I'm gonna let my heart rate elevate a little bit. I'm gonna let my breath get shallow. Let those body sensations come and let them move. And they will. They
yeah.
will.
Yes. This is good. I as you were talking, I was thinking about something I saw recently. Denzel was being interviewed, and the interviewer asked him about the death of his mom.
Mm,
And he was human, and he felt
mm,
the emotions rise, and he stopped and he started to fight it. And he started saying
mm,
things like, "Ooh, this shouldn't happen. I'm sorry."
mm.
And apologizing. We have to begin to lean in, even if it doesn't look good to other people. this grief journey, this pain journey, it is really not about saving face. It's
Absolutely.
about you reaching a place where you allow yourself to heal
Mm-hmm.
and move forward. You hold so much power, and we're going to talk about your power in a moment, but we fight the feeling so much.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Yes.
hurting, you're hurting. And
You're hurting. You're
it's
hurting.
okay. It's
And
okay
it's
that you're
okay.
hurting. And I
Yes.
think,
And
as I think
yeah.
about your role as a doula,
Mm-hmm.
you talked about helping that husband to help that mom.
Mm-hmm.
I want the listeners to think about the people in your circle that are
Yeah.
hurting. How can
Mm-hmm.
you help them?
Yes.
Sometimes we equate help to doing it for them.
That's right. Yeah.
Those are two totally different things. We should
Mm-hmm.
not be doing it for them, but it's
Mm-hmm.
okay for you to say, look, I've noticed that you haven't cried. I've noticed
Mm-hmm.
that you're not leaning in. I've noticed that you're not slowing down. I've noticed that you have not taken any rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to encourage you. That may be you stepping into the role of a doula for the person that you love. One of
That's
the
right.
things you said, Danielle, that I cannot let slide, you talked about the scripture in Deuteronomy and
Mm-hmm.
seeing two paths.
Mm-hmm.
And you said the one path wasn't necessarily a physical death,
That's right.
but it was life absent of some things. Can you talk about, because we think death is always a physical death. What does
Mm-hmm.
life look like when you're still living, but you're dead?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I think life looks disintegrated. I think it looks disconnected, where I'm living as a shell of myself, where my mind and my body and my spirit are kind of disjointed rather than integrated and aligned. I think that uh, kind of a non-living life is
Mm,
unconscious. I think it's not present. I would call it autopilot living. It's just I'm
mm,
just here. I'm just going through the motions. Life is living me rather than me living my life.
mm.
And it takes, again, time to slow down, takes courage to pause, to step back and go, something feels wrong. Something feels weird. I don't feel like I'm whole. I don't feel integrated. I feel fractured. I feel disjointed. How do I come home to myself and create some connections with them?
But I have bills, I have these kids, I have a husband, I have responsibility. I don't have time to do that. I'm a CEO, I'm a boss chick. I'm doing all the things and I'm showing up on social media, and you're telling me to slow down and come home to myself?
Hmm. Hmm. Because I'm going to say, what what is living that way costing you mentally, physically, emotionally? And there's going to be some things that you might be able to know, and there's going to be a lot of things you're not going to be able to see. I call it the cost of inaction, the cost of not moving towards healing and wholeness. And the more I learn about the body, I can guarantee you that if we're living in this nonstop grind culture, you're probably living in survival mode, and that is bad for your health. You're probably living and you're probably maxing out your reserves and you're maxing out your body. And at some point, if you don't sit yourself down, your body might sit you down for you. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen to so many women. They've come to me and their doctors have said, You got to sit down. You got to stop. Because if you don't, your blood pressure is already through the roof, or your sleep, you're only getting 4 hours of sleep a night. And there's so many implications on our health to a type of grind, hustle, nonstop lifestyle. And I think we deserve more. I think we deserve better than that.
Yes, we do. But what we're going to do is we're going to keep grinding, and we're going to take medicine instead of dealing with the issue. So we have the issue. We need to slow down. But instead
Hmm.
of slowing down, we're going to get some medicine to
Hmm.
help me because I'm not sleeping. But I'm still going
Right.
to have the issue that's
Yes,
causing the not sleeping
that's right.
and
Yes.
take medicine on top of it.
Yes, it's like
What are
it's
we
just
doing?
it's a Band-Aid practice. You would never put a Band-Aid on an open wound. Like, you would go get stitches, you were like, you're gonna go get that dealt with so it doesn't, show up later and, like, get infected and have even a greater impact on your health. In the same way, it's like, I cannot treat a burnout type of lifestyle with medicine. That's a Band-Aid. That's putting a Band-Aid on an open wound.
I need you to say that one more
Yes.
time.
Yes. I cannot heal or treat a burnout lifestyle with medicine.
Mm.
That's the equivalent of putting a Band-Aid on an open wound, which you would not do.
We got a deal. We got a deal. So I got a question I have been burning to ask you. Help me to understand, what is an embodiment coach? What do you
Yes.
do? What does it entail? How do you help women as an
Yes.
embodiment coach?
Beautiful question. Yeah, so I use the word embodiment coach because I think it speaks very pointedly to how I help women. I used to call myself a wellness coach, but in the embodiment space, so living embodied is all about you living in a connected way, living integrated, where you're not just a mind, a thinking being, you are a feeling being, and your body is a part of your life. So often in the West, we live pretty disconnected from our body, where we're not able to notice the internal sensations happening in our body, and then which means we're not able to respond to what our body needs. I always use the verbiage, our body is talking to us, and if it's talking, what story is it telling? We need to listen to it. And so as an embodiment coach, I help women to connect mind and body so they can work with the wisdom of the body, particularly lots of things about the nervous system, to enjoy more life to the full. So to me, if you're doing any kind of healing work, I will say this, I believe that 90% of healing happens in the body. And now we know this from a cold perspective. Oh, I got a cold. I need to rest my body. I need to hydrate my body. I need to fuel my body. Oftentimes, when we think about emotional things, we don't often think about the body. But if I want to grow and heal some emotional wounds, if I want to elevate my mindset to grow my business, I'm going to say the body needs to be involved in all of those things. And that's how I help my clients. I help them come home to their bodies and begin to listen to those cues, because the nervous system, the body is telling us lots of things. And it's giving us cues a lot of times about, do I feel safe? Do I feel nervous? Do I feel whatever? And we're learning to tap into that so we really can live this present and conscious life, this integrated life to the full.
Okay, all right. It just made me want to ask you another question.
Okay.
So, when you think about living in this grind culture
Mhm.
that is applauded,
Mhm.
if we were really honest about it, when you think about that, there's a level of stress
Oh,
that
yes.
you deal with, that you not only carry passively, but
Mhm.
science says that stress impacts my body.
Absolutely. Yep.
But also, a lot of people, the statistics say that 90% of adults living in the US have experienced at least one traumatic event in their life.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Yep.
now we're talking about, because if I haven't dealt with that trauma, it's also living in this body.
That's right. Yes.
So I have the trauma, sometimes from childhood.
Mhm.
And now as an adult, I have all of the stress. And now we're going to bring grief and enter
Mhm.
it into the body also.
Mhm.
How does that impact? What does it look like when it shows up in my body as a woman?
Mm. Oh my goodness. It can stress, trauma, and grief all together. How does it look in the
All of
body?
it. All of it.
So many different things. So many different things. It can look like tight muscles. It can look like a weakened immune system. It can look like a foggy mind. It can look like a painful body. It can look like a body that won't sleep well. It can look like a body with no appetite. It can look like a body with digestive issues. So many things. And here's why I say that. So the nervous system, the brain, spinal cord, and nerve, that's your nervous system. its health directly relates to the health of every other system of your body. And if your nervous system over years has been dealing with compounded stress and compounded trauma that actually didn't get a chance to heal and be released from the body, it's all kind of still stuck in there and compounding. So now my body is now using a lot of, it has limited resources now because it's kind of in survival mode. And so rather than it having all of its resources to make sure the immune system is working well, to make sure digestion is working well, it now has resources being spent keeping you in survival mode. So all those other systems get affected. This is why I'm so passionate about doing this work, because it's not just about like, oh, I'm living my full self, true to me. But no, this is life and for real death.
Yes.
This is like, if I cannot, if I don't learn how to heal from some of this stress and past trauma and grief that's compounding in my body, this results in my body kind of shutting down in different ways. It might, and so that's what it looks like, so many different things. But that it just shows up in various ways.
Oh my gracious. I don't know where the time is going because I'm just like, can't hold my peace over here. Because when you talk about women, and now we're talking about the foggy thinking and the painful body and all the things that our body is now sending signals about because
Yeah,
we have not processed and healed. Now we somebody's mama.
that's right.
Now we somebody's wife. Now we're leaders in corporations. Now we're leaders in churches. And we don't want to deal with mental health.
Mm. Hmm.
So if we're not processing pain, if we're not processing trauma, if we're not making sure that we're decreasing the amount of stress we put on our minds and our bodies,
Hmm.
we are literally fast tracking ourselves down a road that leads to a graveyard, whether it's
Hmm.
physical or not,
That's right.
is what I hear you saying.
Yes, it's very, very serious for our own health and those around us, those that come after us. The way I live my life, my child is witnessing that. So if I continue to model a life of burnout, that's what they see as normative. And now and without intentionally doing it, um,
Mm.
I've passed on to them, oh yeah, life's supposed to be a burnout living, when that's not how life is supposed to be at all.
Oh, and we see it all the time. We
Yeah.
see it all the time. This explains one of the reasons, not everybody, but this explains one of the reasons why sometimes we go to the doctor and the doctor they will do 1,000,001 tests and they end up saying, I didn't find anything because it's
Mhm.
probably not physical, medical. Your physical
Mm.
body is being impacted
That's right.
by all of the unresolved pain that we're carrying in our nervous system.
Yes, I like to say that the body is a container. And if that container didn't get a chance to release and discharge some of this stuff, it's still at some level there, it's still impacting us. And so I like to help people differentiate stress from stressors. So some people think that stress is the external situation. So I got a bad boss, I got a chaotic house. Those actually are stressors. And what I mean by that, those are the things that your body is responding to that
Mm.
look like threats. Because your body's job, and we honor it, your body wants to keep you safe. So your body is constantly scanning your environment to go, is that safe? Is that safe? Is that safe? Is that safe? And if it's not, it's going to put you in some form of survival mode. And I'm sure we're used to some of these words: fight, flight, or freeze. There's a fourth one called fawn. We're not going to talk about that. Um, but at some level, your body's going into fight, into flight, or into freeze. So if you don't have tools to discharge that stress from your body, it's called completing the stress cycle. That's what I help clients learn to do. If you don't have those tools, your body is staying like this. So now I didn't get to come back down to safety to rest and digest. And now every space I go into, my body is practically doing this. It's fighting, it's in fight mode, or it's in flee mode. And that's exhausting. That
So
takes
hot.
so much energy. And so when we can start paying attention to the body and not just dealing with external circumstances. Listen, stressors can be gone. Stress, like you mentioned, is what's left in my body.
Mm,
And the stress is what, it's a really morbid quote, but it's the stress that will kill you faster than the stressor,
that's good.
unless you do something to complete that stress cycle. And so I like to help clients differentiate that. And I use an analogy of like a car on a freeway. The car like almost might have come into your lane and almost hit you, but it doesn't. It kind of moves away. So that car was the stressor. It came into my lane. I'm safe. It didn't hit me. But like if that were to happen, your body kind of responds, right? You kind of go into like, oh,
Yeah.
protect myself. The stressor is all the way gone. They don't even know that you're on the road anymore.
Yeah.
But all the stuff that you're feeling in your body, that's what has to be dealt with. Because that's the stuff that over time compounds and accumulates and begins to negatively affect your health. And here's the thing about stress, too, how the body responds. Your body does not know the difference between a physical threat and a psychological one. And what I mean by that is your body might respond to a lion about to eat you as a threat. And your body also responds to that foolish comment as a threat. The foolish comment won't actually kill you like the lion will. The foolish comment, but your body doesn't know that the foolish comment is that way. It doesn't know. It just knows this is a threat and I got to go, I got to survive. I got to go into survival mode. And if we stop and think about all the stressors that we're constantly responding to as women of color, it's so much. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm so passionate about making sure, especially women, have these tools to discharge this stress, to bring their nervous system out of survival mode into rest, into safety, so they can actually live a life of joy.
And sometimes the things that we're responding to that increases our stress, they're not even things that are important to us.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about social media. You're getting into
yeah,
these battles with people that you don't even know. Let it go because your body is paying for that. Your
yeah.
mind, your emotions, you're paying for that.
And that's why it's so important to start to pay attention to, what is my body telling me? How does my body feel when I'm on that social media account? How does my body feel when I see those things, when I engage in that? It don't feel good. But oftentimes we don't know how our body feels because we're so disconnected from it, which is why I
Yes.
like to call myself an embodiment coach, is to help us connect. And the more we can connect with our body and actually pay attention to what we're experiencing and the life we're living, the more we can work with the wisdom of the body to actually enjoy full life. Something I wanted to say earlier, I want to make sure I don't forget to say it. We were talking about grief and the how we usually want to suppress and stuff
Mhm.
down. And I don't want to face this and it's painful. And I recognize, yes, it is uncomfortable. But here's what I want to say about that. You cannot selectively suppress emotions. What I mean by that is if I choose to suppress my grief and my sadness, I'm simultaneously suppressing my ability to experience joy and happiness and pleasure because the body you can't selectively suppress. And so I like to say, especially in the grief space, grief and joy to me are like two sides of a coin. And or let me use a slingshot analogy. Let's use that. The further I allow myself to go back in grief and face what is hard and uncomfortable, the greater my capacity for joy.
Good. That's so good. That's so good. So let me make sure that I got it. The deeper I allow myself to feel and experience the thing that is uncomfortable, the more I allow myself to catapult forward in my healing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because what you're doing is you're increasing your window. If this is my window and I can only move between here and here, whether grief and joy, if I start to let myself feel this much more grief and really sit in the uncomfortable and really cry, now I can feel that much more joy. And for those who have resistance and hesitation, I get it. It is okay. So I'm not asking you to go from here to here.
Mhm.
I'm asking you, can you go from here to here? And can you take those moments, those little steps to increase your range? And to me, that is widening your range for
Yeah.
life to the full.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. One of the things I recognize that you said a lot is your body.
Hmm.
Your body. And I think sometimes when those hard things hit us in life,
Hmm.
we forget the power we have within
That's right.
our own body.
Yeah.
We have a power. We have the power to make the choice. We have the power to choose greater for ourselves, even if it hurts. We have the power to embrace the uncomfortable. We have the power to say, I'm not going to live the life I was living before this pain showed up because
Yeah.
I need something different.
Hmm.
And so there are two things that I want to ask you to do because the time has ran. It's gone. It's gone. I don't know where it went, but
Yes.
it left. And I'm so grateful that you came. I'm so grateful that you shared your joy about Chase and your his transition, but how you were able to still tap in even in the midst of those hard times, because you don't have to. I recognize that you didn't have to let us into that hard space, and
Hmm.
so I honor you for that. But I want you to tell us about, you have something called a challenge.
Hmm.
What is a 3-day challenge?
Yes. So oftentimes in the coaching space, you'll see coaches host multiple day challenges. So it might be a mindset challenge or a business challenge, launch your web page or go launch your IG live series. So in my line of work, my version of a challenge is this challenge. And it's called that intentionally because it's a time for us to slow down, to
Mhm.
pause, to practice rest, to come home to ourselves. And I get to spend 3 days with women teaching them how to tap into the power of the mind body connection, to work with that wisdom of the body, to get out of survival mode, to get out of autopilot living, to get out of going through the motions, just existing, into thriving, into consciously living, into being an active participant in the life I want to live, into integrated living.
That's good. That's good. I am a therapist by trade and training, but I believe in mental wellness. And
Hmm.
sometimes when you have gone through grief, you've gone through pain, you're going through a tough time, we automatically think you need a therapist. And
Mm.
sometimes that's not going to meet your needs. Maybe it's not a therapist. You might need an embodiment coach. It depends on
Mhm.
what your needs are. But I
Mhm.
want to challenge each and every listener to take this information and look at your own life and decide, what is it I need to move forward? What is it I need? Danielle, as we wrap up, I want to ask you to give a word, whatever you would like to say to that woman who is stuck. She has
Mhm.
not been able to move forward. Her grief is connected to something that happened and she hasn't been able to shake back. What is it you would say to that woman?
To that woman, I would say, I'm sorry for your loss. That is heavy. That is hard. And I'm confident that your loved one, if they have passed, would want you to keep on living and living well. And in that light, my encouragement for her would be to take space to let herself feel. And I would offer her two things, two body things for her to use as she does that. I would invite her, take moments, find even 5 minutes of silence, even 5 minutes. Just I'm going to be present for 5 minutes. Breathe deeply. I would invite her to breathe deeply and let her exhale be longer than let her inhale. No, I said it right. Let her exhale be longer than her inhale. That's going to support her body. And I would invite her to start to notice, where do you feel this grief? And if it's sometimes in her chest, sometimes in her face, I would invite her, just gently place your hand there And that's a practice of self-compassion because we need so much love and so much compassion. And sometimes those around us don't get it. They will say rude things, but they'll be well intentioned. And so sometimes you might have to be the person that provides you some of the care that you need. And so I would encourage her in those 5 minutes to place her hands wherever she's feeling the sensations of the grief, the weightiness of the sadness.
That's so good. And can that also be a practice for that woman who may not have had a loss, but she is in grind mode and she's going, and there's nobody else there to give her that love and compassion?
Absolutely. I would encourage her the same way to use that long exhale. The long exhale actually invites your body to shift. It turns on your body's relaxation mode. And so that can kind of shift you out of that survival place and move you into what's called rest and digest. It's a state of your nervous system. So many people don't know that you can turn on your body's relaxation response with your breath. So I would encourage her to inhale deeply through her nose and super slow as possible, let that air go. And that touch, the self-touch, the self-compassion, the same way. If you have a lot of stress in your body, the stress hormone, I'm sure you've probably heard about it, it's called cortisol.
Mhm.
When you place your hand on your body, on your heart, when you give yourself a hug, your body reads this as a posture of care. And if you hold it for at least 20 seconds, it invites the love hormone, oxytocin, to be released in your body. So whenever you need a moment to battle some cortisol, let's invite some oxytocin into the building, into the body, by placing our hands on our body. You can give yourself a hug. You can do self-compassionate touch. 20 seconds goes a long way.
Ooh, so I'm going to go ahead and write a prescription for y'all ladies out there. Go ahead and do that every day, at least for 5 minutes, and make it a practice of self-care for you. Thank you so much, Danielle. Can you tell the people how to find you? If they want to connect with
Absolutely.
you, tell the people how to get to the embodiment coach.
Yes, on Instagram, I am at Danielle.L.Anderson with an O-N. And on Facebook, I am Danielle Guillory Anderson. Those are my socials. And if you want to find me on my website, it is wellwithdanielle.net. And I would love the opportunity to support you in your wellness journey.
Wellwithdanielle.net. This has been amazing. Thank you all for being, yes, men as well. You can give yourself those loving touches, that compassion, and invite in that love hormone. Yes, most definitely. And we can support and teach other people, including our children, to
That's
start doing it early. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being here. We appreciate you. I am Lynda Carmouche, the host of The Elephant Room, where we help you to heal the person behind the title. Whatever title that is you're hiding behind, we want you to heal. Thank you for being here for another episode.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Elephant Room. Make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for more powerful insights, down-to-earth conversations, and the courage to face whatever comes your way. This is where vulnerability meets strength and transformation gets real.